Hey everyone, Justin Conroy here, and in this video I'm going to tell you about the 5 best Fidelity Index Funds across various risk profiles. Let's go ahead and get started. Now if you take a look at Fidelity's index fund list, you'll notice that there are over 60 options. Now that's a lot of index funds to choose from, so how do we narrow down this list? Well, when I look for index funds, I have 4 criteria that I look for. Number 1, I want a very low expense ratio, so in this case I'm going to go with anything less than 0.06. Number 2, I'm looking for a fund that sticks to its index as closely as possible. So that means I'm going to be looking for funds with greater than 97% R-squared value. Number 3, I'm looking for a fund that's over 5 years old because for me personally, I don't really trust a brand new fund. And number 4, in general, I want a fund that's been performing well over its lifetime. So if we apply those 4 criteria to our list of around 60 funds from Fidelity, we can immediately knock that list down to about 11 different funds. Now my goal here is to give you 5 picks across various risk profile categories. So what are those categories? Risk profile categories are usually based on your age. The younger you are, the more risk you can tolerate, and the older you are, the less risk you can tolerate. So if you take a look at this diagram, you'll see 5 different portfolio types: aggressive, growth, moderate, conservative, and income. Now these are the terminologies that are typically used when you're looking at 401k fund selection. Now if you look again on the right, you'll see the fund types. From top to bottom and left to right, we have small cap funds, mid-cap funds, large cap funds, and bonds. So when it comes to our Fidelity Index funds, I'm going to pick 5 across those various categories. So starting with my pick for the small cap index fund, we're going to go with FSSNX. These are going to be fun to say. FSSNX is going to have an expense ratio of 0.025. It's got an R-squared value of 1. It's almost 10 years old. We've got an average annual return of 14.7% over the lifetime of the fund. There's no minimum to invest. It's heavily weighted in US-based holdings in the healthcare, financials, and industrials market sectors, and its top 3 holdings are Penn National Gaming, Caesars Entertainment, and Plug Power Incorporated. Hey, real quick, if you're liking this video, do me a favor and hit the like button down below. Really helps me out by letting YouTube know that this is good quality content and that it should be shared with more people. Thanks. Next, we have our pick for our mid-cap fund, and we're going to go with FSMDX. Now, like FSSNX, our FSMDX has an expense ratio of 0.25% and an R-square value of 1. It's also almost 10 years old, but its annual average return is a little bit higher at 15.1% over the lifetime of the fund. There's no minimum to invest. It's heavily weighted in US-based holdings in the IT, industrials, and financial market sectors, and its top 3 holdings are KLA Corp, Twitter, and Twilio. Now moving on to our pick for our moderate fund, we're going to go with FXAIX, which is Fidelity's S&P 500 index fund. FXAIX has an expense ratio of 0.015, also with an R-squared value of 1. Now this fund is over 30 years old with an average annual return of 10.9% over the lifetime of the fund. There's no minimum to invest. It's heavily weighted in US-based holdings in IT, healthcare, and the consumer discretionary market sectors, and its top 3 holdings are companies you've definitely heard of. These are your Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon companies. For our 4th fund, we're going to go a little bit more conservative and pick FNBGX, which is Fidelity's long-term treasury bond index fund. FNBGX has an expense ratio of 0.03 with an R-squared value of 0.99. This fund is over 15 years old with an average annual return of just over 6% over the lifetime of the fund. There's no minimum to invest, and it's made up of almost entirely US Treasury bonds. Finally, for our 5th fund, we're going to go with FXNAX, which is the Fidelity US Bond Index Fund. FXNAX has an expense ratio of 0.025 with an R-squared value of 0.99. This fund is over 30 years old. It has an average annual return of 5.8% over the lifetime of the fund. There's no minimum to invest, and it's made up entirely of US Treasury bonds, corporate bonds, and MBS pass-through bonds. So in summary, from most aggressive to most conservative, we have FSSNX, which is the Fidelity Small Cap Index Fund, FSMDX, which is the Fidelity Mid Cap Index Fund, FXAIX, which is the Fidelity S&P 500 Index Fund, FNBGX, which is the Fidelity Long-Term Treasury Bond Index Fund, and finally FXNAX, which is the Fidelity US Bond Index Fund. Well, that's it. When it comes to the best Fidelity Index funds, these are my top choices. If you made it this far in the video, you rock. thanks for sticking around for so long. And I'd really love it if you could answer a question for me down below in the comments. What did you like about this video? Or what would make this video better? I'm really trying to make better content for you guys, so your feedback would be really helpful, and I would appreciate it greatly. Hey, thanks again. I'll see you next time.